When you're customizing your client's WordPress site, it's easy to overlook a very simple widget called the text widget. In fact, it can be used for a lot of different purposes. So for example, I could put contact information on my sidebar, for instance, and it'll show everywhere on my site, not just on the contact page. So how do we do that? Well, let's go get ourselves some contact information right there. And then I'm going to go over to my WordPress widgets. And let me just drag a text widget up here, up to the main area here. And I'm going to drop this in. Now don't forget this is HTML, so I need my code there for a line break at the end of each. Now don't forget, your client can do this. You could set it up for them like this, and then they could be changing it whenever they needed to. If the phone number happened to change or they wanted to add some contact information, they could do it here. Notice I've left automatically add paragraphs off. If you check off this box, it'll work just like your text editor does in posts and pages. Every time you hit a return, it'll create a paragraph. In this case, we didn't want paragraphs, we wanted line breaks between each. So we'll save that. I'll just put this as get in touch. Let me just capitalize that. There we go, and then I save it. And then we take a look at our live website, and now what's here right now, of course, is our default sidebar. When I refresh, it's going to be replaced by the widget. And there it is right there. So if I take a look at this element here, I can see that this widget has an ID of text-10. So I'm able to style this if I want exactly the way I want. In other words, I can get very specific about styling. Right now it looks fine. I'll just leave it like that as it is. But one of the things I don't want, perhaps, is for this to appear on the Contact Us page, since the information will already be there. Well, that's where we use our Widget Logic that we installed. I go over here. Notice I've got a couple of tabs open here for different parts of my admin screen. You can have as many open as you want, and I find that very handy. So I'm not constantly having to click on the menu here. I can just go back and forth between my tabs. So in this case, I want to know the ID number for the Contact Us page because I'm going to put a bit of logic in here. So let's do this. We're going to negate it. We're going to say not the case that is page 48. So what this coding is saying is, if it's not page 48, then display the information in this widget. So I save that. Now on our contact page, which is page 48, this will disappear. It's there everywhere else, but the logic is saying don't show it on the Contact Us page. So there's where that widget logic comes into play. Very, very handy to use. Now, another way to use your text widget, a very common way, is for the sign-up form for your newsletters. And this is where you'd put the code for it. I use MailChimp, a mailing list manager. Here is a form and the embed code that's going to go in. And then we're going to go back here to our widgets. We'll close this one. We need another text widget. We'll just run it up here. Paste in our code. There we go. Again, we don't want to add paragraphs. We save that, and we go back to here. And now on every page, again, we didn't put any logic in this one, every page will now show our mailing list form. And again, if the client decides to change that form, they just do it in their mailing list manager, come back here, erase all of this, put in the new code. As easy as that. Other uses for your text widgets. Well, you could put a short bio and your picture in there. Now, putting a bio is pretty easy. That's just text. But how do you put a picture in there? How does a client do that? Well, it becomes very easy because all you have to do is pretend as if you're creating a new post, let's say. And you go find, we'll assume you've uploaded your image already into the media library. So you go and find your image. In here you go and look in the media library. And you find it and you say, okay, this is the one I want, and I'm going to put in the thumbnail. I don't want any of the alignment. I just want it plain. I want the thumbnail. Insert it into the post. And there's my code. I've done it in HTML mode. I could have done it in visual and then switched to HTML, but I have to be in HTML mode to grab this coding. So I copy that, I go back here, I'm going to close this one up, and I'm going to grab yet another text widget. Notice this is one of these you can use over and over and over again for different purposes. I plug this in, I save it, and now my image is going to appear on the sidebar like this. Now you could do this with PDFs, for example, and you could have downloads on your sidebar. You could do all sorts of things. And again, the client could easily change this. It's fairly straightforward to use as long as you remind them it's got to be in HTML. If they're comfortable with HTML, that's great. If they're not, just go and use your text editor that you use for posts and pages. Very, very straightforward to do. So those are a few of the uses. Again, those current specials. You could put a menu on the sidebar. You're an insurance company, you've got forms people need to use. You could put those on the sidebar. So they're always accessible that way. And that's an example of using a very, very simple text widget.